I was, and then I was like, he might be thinking I'm waving at him, so I don't want to snub him.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 23rd, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. My name is Amy Wiltsey, and I am Chair of the Finance Committee, and we have everyone in attendance, so thank you for the perfect attendance tonight. We will begin our agenda with our first item of action, which is our acceptance of minutes from our September 26th meeting. Thank you. Can I please have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item C, discussion, information, and possible action. This evening, we have no budget transfers, so we will move to item B, which is our financial reports. I will start with Ms. Mangini.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I have provided you with the monthly financial report at September 30th, 2023. Obviously, it's still very early in the fiscal year, so there's not a lot to report, but we are carefully watching the utility accounts as we go forward. I did mention in my memo to the board and the Finance Committee members that the town advised us recently that they locked into a new contract for electricity pricing. And the price did increase per kilowatt hour about 40%. So it is going to have some impact on our budget. We'll monitor it, watch it closely, and hope for the best. I do know that the town had been watching pricing for quite some time, and this was probably the first time it was even this low. So I know that they were struggling with locking in at the best price as well. But that's all I have to report on our monthly financial report, unless anyone has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Mangini with regard to expenditures? Yeah, Mrs. Bedell?
Ms. Mangini, thank you. Just a quick question on the monthly financial report. Salaries and benefits, there's an encumbered amount. Let's just take salaries. There's an encumbered amount, and then there's a current available balance.
Correct.
What does that current available balance represent? Is that the amount of unfilled positions at the moment, or?
It's a combination. There will be some unfilled positions in there, but there's also the coaches' salaries and student activity salaries that have not yet been encumbered.
Okay.
And there's also the curriculum development salaries, so those aren't always encumbered until we assess who is going to be writing curriculum and who is going to be paid for doing that. So there are some areas that aren't normally encumbered this early in the fiscal year.
And I assume that benefits is not the same position. It's probably a 3 times a year payment for benefits or something?
We do pay monthly for Anthem.
Okay.
There are some items. Again, if there's positions that aren't filled, then we would not yet have all of that encumbered. Also, we do have, this is September, so a lot of movement occurs between September and October, so you will see that number change as we move forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mangini. Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Henrik?
Yeah, so with the salaries, you did mention some of it is for coaches, so we know kind of what those expenses will be, I would assume?
Not until we fill the positions, because there are different levels that they come to us at. So if it's somebody who has experience, they're going to be at a higher dollar amount than someone perhaps who is new. So we won't encumber until that actual appointment is made by our athletic directors.
Okay, so I know a lot of in our consent agenda, we have a lot of coaches hiring, but is it just for like spring sports that we're not hiring?
Right now,
at this
it's
point?
fall, winter sports, and I don't believe they have hired all that many for spring sports yet. They may have, but I'm sure there's plenty that have not been yet.
Okay, I mean, it's just a large number, 4 million?
But again, this is September, and a lot has happened over the last couple of weeks, so you will see that change, a lot of change to all of this area over the next month or two.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Mangini? Okay, we will move on to item 2, grants update with Dr. Fleming.
Good evening, everyone. It's still a busy season for grant applications, so I'll run through this list fairly quickly. We have 3 new grants in the report that I sent you for last month for September. The Alliance grant had come through by that point. That's $2 million. We won a grant for Art Esser dual credit expansion for $90,000. That's a grant to allow us to work with some of the local institutions of higher education to offer more dual credit opportunities for our high school students. And the ARPA Mental Health Specialist grant came through. That's a small one, it's $46,000, but allows us to contract with an additional part-time social worker to provide more services to our students as needed. We submitted 4 grants in September to the state. Title I for $1.9 million, Title II for $202,000, Title III for $79,000, and the bilingual grant, which helps fund the dual language program and other EL programming for $44,000. We have 1 grant that's still in waiting. We turned it in over the summer. The Parents Trust Fund grant, which funds Parent C when it's available. We haven't heard back about that one yet, so that's why you don't see it on your report. And we have some applications in progress. Title IV is due at the end of the month, so middle of next week. That's $135,000. We are doing a second HVAC grant in cooperation with the town. We're going to attempt to put new boilers in at Wilcoxon and Chapel. And we don't have an amount on that yet because the specs are still being drawn up. But and the town's got to allocate the match and things like that. But that's in progress, and that application is due in December. And we are applying for a Stronger Connections grant, which is another state grant using federal funds. It's for safe and inclusive learning environments in our schools. It's $243,000, and we are going to apply it to climate specialists. So that's the update for this month. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Dr. Clemmy with regards to grants? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to item 3, which is our special education PPS report with Ms. Heather Borges.
Good evening. Pretty quick report for you guys tonight. We're tracking currently on budget, but similar because this is September. Next month, you're going to see a lot larger dip in these numbers. And again, just so you guys know, because you've asked for it, in the bold is last month's number of students with exceptionalities, and then the number before it is what we currently have, so you can see the increase as the month goes on. The other thing that I tracked for you guys per your request was how many students with exceptionalities have moved in since July 1st, and that was 64 students have registered with us that are new. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Borges?
Well, I'm sorry, the 1288 includes the 64?
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. David?
Yes, so are those 64 students, when it takes a while to figure out if we can service them in district or if we have to outplace them. What have we seen with that number?
So it's about 30 days, right? So after you register, we do what we can to service you, and then we have a PPT to make that decision. So you're looking at probably 2 or 3.
2 or 3 out of the 64? And how does that, can I keep going?
Yes, please.
So how does that affect for budgeting for CIAs? I mean, we didn't budget an extra 60, or if the half of them needed 30 CIAs.
Yep. It requires Ms. Mangini and I working together to look at those needs. So as they come in, if that's a need on their IEP and we realize that they do need that, then I work with Ms. Mangini to make sure that that position gets posted and we hire.
Or it goes through Beacon or IPP as
Yep.
well?
Yep.
And how are
Depending if
we-
it's a
how are we
BT or a
doing with-
CIA or
So, I'm not
go for it.
drilling, but this is what I don't understand. So we have 64 new students. We have our limited staff now. So how are we looking at those students as they're coming in? What staff? Is that pulling from staff from other kids and stuff like that? Or basically, the kids that we have now, it's pretty, it's a very exact science when we start in September. Are those kids getting the hours they're supposed to get because we now have 64 kids we don't have? Or do we have to play catch up with the existing population we already service?
So it depends on the IEP. So when we receive a registration, I read the IEP and the needs, we contact the sending district, we talk with the parents. If at that point in time, we can determine that that child needs additional services, we post right then and there, okay? If it's a question of, sometimes in New York, they're always 12 to 1, right? We don't do that in Connecticut. So when I look at those IEPs, we usually work on the first 30 days, assess the need of the student. Sometimes they'll use classroom CIAs to cover those to see if that is a real need, and then we'll make that determination. If it's a BT or a different level of need, then that's where we contract with Beacon for those.
I'm just want to make sure we have enough on call or whatever we're doing for the 64 kids now coming in,
I
or
think that-
62 kids.
Everyone here has always been very responsive. We had an additional need. Ms. Mangini helped me open up another ABA classroom to meet that need. So, we try to make sure we are responsive to what is coming in and how we can fill our positions. We talk about that, whether our programs are full, how much space we have left in the programs, and whether we need to open additional classrooms.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Sens.
Do we have, like floating CIAs permanently on the staff who are not assigned to particular children, the students, and then if we need them on a daily basis, they can be sent to that school?
We have what we call classroom CIAs in buildings. And classroom CIAs are not attached to any particular student and can service more than one student.
Right.
We don't have a district floater CIA any longer. That was eliminated a couple years back.
Oh, it was eliminated? Okay.
And just on that sense, we don't have any floating special education teachers, though.
No.
No, it's just want to.
No.
They would be permanent, right?
Thank you.
Are you both all set?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Ms. Borges?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Henry?
Yeah, so last year, do you know, you said we have 1288 this year. Do you know at this time last year how many children with exceptionalities we had?
About 80 less.
80, okay. And when you did your budgeting for this year, did you budget based on last year's numbers, or did you have an increase in there?
I budgeted based on an estimate, and I was pretty close. So I budgeted based on 1,300.
Okay.
Give a little room as far as caseloads go. So that doesn't add any additional CIAs or any additional outplacements. What it adds is caseload numbers to make sure that we have enough teachers to add more students as they become identified as students with exceptionalities.
Okay, so you estimated, and you're pretty accurate with your estimate, that was all included in our current budget, so we're not,
Yep.
at this point, we're not looking at a deficit in that.
Not yet.
Not yet, but yes. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from that end of the table? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Burke.
Just, you may have just answered this question. When we started in July, on July 1, How many students were we budgeting for at that point?
I budgeted for approximately 1,300 students. That's what we estimated on our IDA as what would be our number based on who was graduating and who was potentially coming in over the past couple of years. So we're pretty close.
It's only October.
We're pretty close.
Okay, yeah. Until January, then we'll be over.
Yes,
Right.
but we're pretty close right now.
Any other questions on that end of the table? Okay, thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
And item number 4, food service report. Mrs. Mangini, please.
Yes, we've provided you with the school lunch program report for July 2023. Obviously, this reflects summer months, so there isn't much change. We are still in a very good financial position, and you will start to see some changes as we get to August, September.
Ms. Mangini, can you speak a little bit about the outstanding balances that are being experienced in all of our schools?
Certainly. We, of course, have to abide by the most recent legislation. So we are limited to what we can do as far as students coming through the lunch line and not paying for their meals. Of course, we want all our children fed and healthy. However, it has been a struggle, and I don't know if perhaps there's some confusion about free meals still. We've gotten a lot of information out there. We will continue to, but our most immediate concern relate to the amount of dollars owed to the food service program so far, just starting into the first month. I meet with our food service director. We talk basically weekly, if not even more frequently, and we're really concerned because we are trying our best to get a handle on it. It could, at this pace, reach a couple of $100,000. And two things that I think the board has and the public have to be aware of. One is that the food service program has to run independently. Those dollars can't be used to make up for unpaid charges. The unpaid charges will have to come from the board's budget by June 30th to make the program whole. We did not anticipate that. We did not budget for that. So it's a little bit unnerving. Nevertheless, we have outstanding support from our building principals, and they are doing some outreach. What we're hoping is that if there are some families really struggling, we can identify them, we can help them apply for free or reduced status, and sometimes it's just misunderstanding or perhaps a little bit of shyness about it or pride. So we're hoping to eliminate the issue or at least mitigate it through those steps. But we will be closely monitoring it, and I'll be happy to at least share some information regarding those balances with the report as we go forward.
Thank you. I feel it's important to be kept abreast of what that's going to look like.
Sure.
Mrs. Colgren?
And if families or community members want to advocate for free lunch for all, who would they be contacting? Because that would be more of a state or federal issue, I'm assuming, correct?
Absolutely, to contact your local legislators. You can absolutely go. I'm sure you can get the information through the town hall, but you can also go on to Connecticut.gov, and there is a listing there as well.
Fantastic, thank you.
And the free or reduced lunch application is still live and accessible on our website, correct?
It is, and for people perhaps who struggle a little bit with the online portion, every school has a hard copy as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Mangini with regard to the food services report? Okay, thank you. We shall move on to item C, enrollment and registration update.
Okay. The enrollment report as of September 29th is technically your October 1st because of the way the calendar fell. And as we reported, we really did feel that we were running pretty close to where we were last year as far as enrollment. And you will see that we are pretty close. With our in-district subtotal, we're at 6697. Last year at this time, we had about 26 additional students. But our total enrollment is basically 7355 from last year versus 7316. So we are pretty close to being in the same number range as we were last year. And honestly, I think you will still find that most districts are declining enrollment, and I think it speaks a lot for the community, but I'm still tempted to put that sign out there that says Stratford's closed for a while. But honestly, we welcome all of our new families, and registration does continue. It certainly has slowed down a bit since last month, but we continue to get new registrations almost on a daily basis.
And the class sizes look pretty good. There's nothing that stands out on the report as prior months.
We have worked hard to try to balance as best we can. It is challenging, and there are some schools that have some grades that are perhaps a little bit more favorable than others, but overall, I think it's pretty balanced, particularly at the elementary. And then at our secondary schools, we currently are seeing a little higher enrollment at Worcester for total students, but that happened last year about this time as well, and then by January, February, it equaled out.
Thank you. Mr. Proto?
Pam, you may have answered this, but if I look at the report, the last line, the previous month's enrollment, that's compared to the bolded line above it, the total enrollment. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I actually heard you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
just be closer to the mic.
the last line of the spreadsheet under in the enrollment page, previous month's enrollment,
Yes,
that is compared to the total enrollment line that's 5 lines above it?
that is the total enrollment plus expulsions, homebound, and special ed placements.
Well, so that's my question, is that if I'm looking at the previous month's enrollment, so just look at preschool. Total enrollment's 197, correct? That, on the sheet I'm looking at, enrollment
Yes,
as of
I'm
September
sorry.
29, 2023,
Yep,
right? Total enrollment is 197. Then if I go down a few lines, previous month's enrollment was 227.
correct.
So that means there was a reduction in the number of students from the previous month from 227 to 197.
Yes.
All right, so my question is, and I don't know if we do any type of exit type interview with families when they leave, other than, it looks like first, second, and 12th grade, we've lost students in every grade from last month.
Well, you also have to look at it from, okay, it is previous month, I'm sorry. Yes, it does appear that way, but I am going to get clarification on that, Ben, because it seems a little fuzzy to me at the moment, too, and I'm either not thinking
Because
clearly.
we picked up 81 students in 12th grade in 1 month.
That could be.
Let me just ask Ms. Mangini, when you say previous month, we haven't received a report since June.
Correct.
So previous month isn't,
Well, that's my question.
Right.
it's end of school year.
I'm
Sure.
going
June.
to see Matt, if Matt is here. Do you have an answer to that? No. Okay. We will check back with Ms. Finnegan, who runs this, and to be honest, I probably did not look at that last line as closely as I should have. So I will clarify that and get back to you. Excellent question.
So just so I'm clear, so we're going to
Yeah.
clarify that the total enrollment line is the total enrollment as of September 29th, 2023.
Correct.
And the previous month's enrollment may be the enrollment as of July 1st, 2023?
That could very well be, yes.
Okay.
I think what would be important in this report, when you say previous month total, just put the month
The month, I
they're
agree.
referring to. That'll clarify everything, I think.
I agree.
In the future.
Thank you.
Monday morning quarterbacking.
No, it's very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
You guys all see it with different eyes, and sometimes we don't see it as clearly, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Mrs. Corcoran?
I'm looking at our racial balancing numbers, and I see that as a district, we're at 73%. It looks like Wilcoxon has gone down a bit, is at 53%. Johnson House is at 88%, Franklin's at 90%, and Soto's at 50%. So I know that there's a pending imbalance list and an imbalance list. Are any of our schools on those lists?
Yes.
And as of those 4 that I mentioned?
Yes, we are on a pending imbalance for Franklin and Johnson. And I believe Nichols might be on that as well.
Yes.
I think we had shared that report with you back in
Yeah.
August.
I know, I was looking online and the numbers are not current. They weren't from this
Correct.
year.
Correct.
And so presumably then, the SLAM study that is being done will help address some of these concerns as well.
Absolutely. We shared the state report with them. They're fully aware of where our concerns are in the
Great.
schools that they need to pay particular attention to.
Excellent, thank you.
Amy. And Pam, in future reports, because the public sees this online, if you could have like a guide of what SE, SOC, ESOL, and everything means, so everyone can read it online.
Excellent. Yeah, we will do that.
Okay, are there any other questions with regard to enrollment and registration for Mrs. Mangini? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned 6:55 PM.